Pioneers in Print by Joy E. Dickerson. Chapter 1. Introduction. Nellie Bly stepped out of her train car and onto the platform where thousands of people greeted her. Loud cheers reverberated through the air, and bands played songs of celebration. Nellie had just traveled around the world by ship, train, and burro in 72 days. Reporters gathered around Nellie, shouting out questions. Nellie just smiled. No reporter was going to scoop Nellie on her own story. She would report on this story herself. Margaret-Bourke White felt the vibrations as the huge B-17 engines whined and screamed before soaring into the sky. The giant airplane was loaded with bombs and with soldiers. She was the first journalist ever to be invited along on a bombing mission. But did Margaret feel fear? No. She wasn't there to feel fear. She had a mission of her own, to take photographs as the bombs were released over their targets in Germany. Helen Thomas stepped out of the door of Air Force One. As she descended the long row of steps to the ground, excitement filled her. She was the only print journalist along for this historic trip. She was covering President Richard Nixon's visit to the People's Republic of China. He was the first United States president ever invited there, and Helen would be visiting places no American had ever seen before. She would be reporting history as it was being made. This is a book about three extraordinary women. Each of them confronted the stereotypes placed upon women, chose a path early in life, and stuck to it. Their paths took them to places women, and many men, had never gone before. Some of those places were in foreign countries, but they also included newspaper offices, huge construction sites, and the White House press room. Each of them broke rules for women that stood between them and their goals. For each of these women, getting the story, in words or pictures, was the most important thing. This is also a book about people who report the news. Reporters and photographers play two important roles in the United States. First, they speak for the people, because most people don't have the opportunity to question their leaders personally. Reporters do this for us. Second, reporters make sure that people know what is going on by digging for the truth, and photographers let us see what is going on by creating images, some of which stay in our minds forever. Nellie, Margaret, and Helen performed these roles with excellence. Each woman's life was also influenced by the technology of her time. Nellie's famous trip around the world involved steamships and trains, as those two technologies were at their peak at that time. Margaret mastered new equipment and processes in photography, and she saw how to put the developments to work in a new field, photojournalism. In Helen's lifetime, computers, phones, televisions, and satellites all came online. To her, they were welcome tools for reporting the news. First, but not only, Nellie, Margaret, and Helen are three of the most famous women journalists. They did many things well, and they did many things first, but hundreds of women reporters, editors, and photographers went before them, and hundreds came after them. A list of a few of these pioneers is on page 90. This is also a book about the history of the 1900s. The events of that century brought us to where we are today. Seeing historical events through the eyes of Nellie Bly, Margaret-Bourke White, and Helen Thomas makes them come alive. Where in the world? Nellie, Margaret, and Helen traveled constantly. Look at the map on page 34 for an example of one of Nellie's numerous journeys. Have you ever visited any of the locations on the map? Nellie Bly. Facts about Nellie Bly. Born Elizabeth Jane Cochran in Cochran's Mills, Pennsylvania in 1864. Moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania after her father, Judge Michael Cochran, died. Added an E to spell her last name as Cochran. Worked for the Pittsburgh Dispatch. Took pen name Nellie Bly. Reported from Mexico in 1886. Hired by the New York World in 1887. Went undercover in mental hospital. Set off on a round-the-world trip in 1889. Married business owner Robert L. Seaman in 1895. Managed her husband's companies when he died. Reported from war zones during World
Sample complete. Ready to continue?